The Albanese government will take on $50 million of debt owed by Rex to keep the struggling airline operating. Now, the government has announced it will acquire debt from Rex's largest creditor, PAG Holdings, to become its principal secured creditor. It will also support the airline's administrators in its next steps.
What this allows for is for the administrators now to undertake a second sale process, which they will start the process of doing, and we're trying to make sure that we provide that with every opportunity of success, because we know for regional communities, particularly those where Rex is the only airline that is actually flying into these communities, just how critical those connections are, and we want to make sure those services continue to be delivered.
And joining me now for more on this is National Senate Leader and Shadow Transport and Infrastructure Minister Bridget McKenzie. Good afternoon. Great to see you. Firstly, the government's debt relief here for Rex Airlines. Has Catherine King called you yet?
No, she hasn't, Holly. And the coalition's been really clear since Rex went into administration. This is the second airline servicing the regions that's gone into administration under Anthony Albanese's watch. We know how critical regional aviation services are, not just for connecting family and friends, but for our economic future, the delivery of critical health services and beyond. So we want to see a bipartisan approach to the retention of regional aviation services so that our communities can continue to stay connected at an affordable price. And I am awaiting a brief from the Minister to actually do what we can as a constructive coalition to keep regional Australians connected with reliable and affordable aviation services.
Wonderful. And it's great to hear that it will receive bipartisan support. And I guess, as you mentioned there too, some critical points, just how important this is for the regions, and not only that, but competition in the aviation sector too. Also today, Donald Trump this week made an executive order for the government to only recognise two genders, male and female. How many genders do you think our government should recognise?
Well, I think Anthony Albanese's government recognises a whole swathe of genders. I've been on the public record, particularly around women's sport, that I think there needs to be safe spaces for our female athletes, and I'm not alone. A lot of our elite athletes, female athletes, have made the same case. So I think that's obviously a decision that the President of the United States has made. And we've been clear that whilst having an inclusive society is something that the Coalition obviously wants to see going forward, we have no plans to legislate around genders.
Okay, so how would your government approach this ongoing discussion with the US if your government wins the election?
Well, I don't think the United States will be making this a key component of our AUKUS relationship, our trade relationship, action that we take more globally with the US at all. This is a decision that President Trump has made for the United States. And I would assume that he would be...
Do you agree with his comments?
Well, I've just said what I think. Obviously, I've made it very clear publicly that I do believe, particularly when it comes to women's sport, that women should be competing against women, and whilst ensuring that there is an inclusive environment for all. But this won't be something that a coalition government will be legislating, and Peter Dutton made that very clear this morning in his public comments at a press conference.
Great. Thank you for clarifying that, Bridget. I really appreciate that. Let's get to some other news now back home on the delegation to Auschwitz at the moment. Sky News reporter Cameron Redden, of course, exclusively revealed Sue Lyons was initially slated to go. Do you think that this should have been a bipartisan delegation? My understanding, it was never offered to the coalition. Is that correct?
Well, if that's your understanding, Holly, I have nothing to discount that. It's disappointing that it wouldn't be a bipartisan delegation, particularly given the coalition's strong support, not just for Israel as an ally post-October the 7th, but our ongoing support for Jewish Australians who have been subjected to such increasing anti-Semitism in our capital cities and our suburbs. I think what's most concerning is that Sue Lyons, as President of the Senate, made these anti-Israel comments while she was actually Deputy President of the Australian Senate. Now, that is one of the highest positions in the Australian Parliament. And so it really goes to show the fact that she was put on this Auschwitz delegation to lead it shows that the Labor caucus and indeed the Labor leadership positions, which include Sue Lyons as the President of the Senate, are riddled with people who do not believe that Israel had a right to defend itself in the manner in which it did post-October the 7th. And we want to go and, commemorate Auschwitz and the sad tale of human history that chapter was. That was the impetus for setting up a Jewish homeland and a Jewish state of Israel post the Second World War. And so to send somebody who's been so public in her critique of Israel, and let's remember this wasn't some, rant she made whilst at university in the 80s. This was whilst she was the Deputy President of the Australian Senate. Says more about the Australian Labor Party's attempts to whitewash their sorry values around Israel and their approach to anti-Semitism over the past 18 months than anything else. So I think it's a good thing she won't be leading this delegation. And I think the Australian public, and particularly our Jewish Australians who are undergoing an incredible, they're very concerned at the moment. There's a level of anxiousness, anxiety in this community because they have not felt protected by this federal government for the last 18 months. And this just really rubs salt into that wound.
OK, Bridget McKenzie, we do have to leave things there. Thank you as always. Always great to see you.
You too.